This is Life Burst. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Matt.
And today we are doing our summer series here on Life Burst, looking back at some of our favourite shows from season 1 and bringing them to you all summer long.
Today we revisit one of our early episodes as we put Sarah in the hot seat and you shared a bit of your life. One of my favourite episodes. It's a compelling story of resilience and hope. So have a listen. So good that you could join us today. And today, as we share stories each week, Sarah is in the hot seat and we get to hear a little bit of your story. So Sarah, as we begin with all our guests, tell us, where did life start out for you?
Well, life started at the beginning of my life. No, I was going to say a really silly quote there to begin with. But no, it started in Stirling, at the Stirling Hospital. And I say that because I was like one of the last babies to be born at Stirling Hospital in 93 in November. I know, right? And there's actually another boy as well, James, who was born around the same time as well at Stirling Hospital. So my parents had kind of this little thing going on, who could come out first. Anyway, that's where life started for me, not anywhere where you might have been expecting that to go. And I've lived in Echunga, so when my mother and now late father got married, they built a house in Echunga, in the centre of Echunga, big family house on like an acre, and had tons of animals and tons of pets, and just really being a part of a community. Looking back now, I was definitely in a really awesome, safe, nice bubble of Echunga with my family so close by. So not only my mother and father, but my brother came along 3 years later. And then I had my grandparents and uncles and aunties that were also close, within at least 10-minute drive from where we were living in Echunga. So it was a really fantastic way to grow up, living in Echunga in the Adelaide Hills.
Now it sounds like an idyllic life and a nice safe bubble, you said, but for you, it wasn't too long into your life as a child that your parents realised that life wasn't going to be so idyllic.
That's right. Around 18 months of age, I stopped walking after starting to walk later on. So I wasn't walking like when normal kids would start walking. I started walking later, then I only walked for like 7 weeks, and then I went back again to bum shuffling around. And it was in that time that my parents knew that something wasn't right. So being in a small country town, we went to the local GP, which was only there on a Wednesday, and went down there in the morning. And he then referred us down to the Women's and Children's Hospital in the city. And so we went down there, and there were a whole bunch of tests, x-rays, injections, blood tests, scans, all those types of things to try and figure out what was wrong with me. And because I was a baby, you can't use words to express how you're feeling. There's no way that you can share what was happening. I don't remember what was happening then. Many of us don't. And what my parents tell me is that by the end of those tests and everything, they got the result back that I was diagnosed with juvenile arthritis.
Right. So this is something that was new to me when I met you, that there is such a thing as juvenile arthritis. We think of arthritis often as an older person's disease, but this is fairly unique.
Yes. Yeah, it is. 1 in 1,000 children currently here in Australia are living with juvenile arthritis right now. There's no medical cure for juvenile arthritis either. So I found it very, lonely growing up, feeling very isolated, even though I had a whole community around me that gathered around my family to support them as I was growing up, supporting us with, medical appointments or going to school or outside activities of church and lots of other different things that happen in the community with CFS and whatever. And they were all there for us, but it doesn't really take away that pain that my parents, that I now know about being older, had of feeling even more alone and isolated than I did, not knowing anyone else who was going through that same situation at the time when I was 18 months of age.
Yeah. So as you grew, what's your earliest memory of some of the symptoms you had, and realizing that this was different to what other people are experiencing?
There are many. I think probably the pivotal memories are being in hospital and about to go under for anesthetic, and they used to use a gas mask on you, like to put the anesthetic through, but to make it fun, they used to put like I think it's still around, like lip smackers on the outside of like the rim of the mask so that it could smell like whatever that was. I'm smelling it right now. It's really gross.
Fruity.
Yeah, to smell fruity. It didn't, doctors. It doesn't smell fruity. You can still smell the fact that you're being put to sleep with this medical gas, I suppose. That's, yeah, anesthetic. And that is pretty traumatizing if you're a young child and you don't understand what's going on, what's happening with your body, or why this is happening. Sure, the doctors and your parents and carers and people can tell you that you're going in to have an operation and this is what's going to happen, but you don't fully understand why it's happening and why this is the only way to treat that, and why there is all this pain and stuff going on in your body. Like, you just don't get it. So some of my earliest memories are pretty traumatizing, and it is sad to think that there are other kids out there, other young kids, older kids, even adults, that have some of these as their first memories of being a child with the juvenile arthritis.
Wow. So as you got older and you started to go to school and things that every child is expected to do, how did life differ for you? How was it difficult?
Well, I didn't spend much time at school, which was unfortunate. I did a lot of learning externally, and my parents were amazing at getting work from school for me to be able to do, and teachers putting sheets and stuff together.
Is that because you were in hospital
Yes,
or in pain?
I was in hospital, yes, or in too much pain, or medication wasn't working, or medication side effect, or any of those things. It's pretty, yeah, it was pretty full on and intense not to be able to kind of be like a normal kid and go to school. You know, your story that you moved around to lots of different places and you had to get to know people again and again and again. I didn't really get that opportunity to sort of get to know them in the first place. And so everybody sort of formed groups, and then you'd have to kind of join in afterwards, and then you wouldn't be there very much. So it was hard to sort of continue those friendships. And that became harder and more apparent pretty much when I started to get into like grade 5 and everything. That's when kids started to really hit on that Sarah is different. We don't know how to treat Sarah, so we're just going to exclude her from everything, and she can just deal with it. We're just going to say mean things about her. We're not going to be very nice to her. And we're like in year 5. So what's that, like 9, 10 years old? And yeah, the kids don't know any different. You know, they might these days, but back then, like, didn't really know any different of how to treat it. I didn't feel supported enough to speak up about how I was actually feeling and to try and explain being constantly in pain, because I thought that being in pain every single day and having to have medication every single day and injections every single day were just normal. Like, everybody was like that. So why am I any different if you're all doing all of this all the time as well as me? But as a younger child in primary school and stuff, I was at Each Hunger Primary. So I was really, really lucky to have the same teacher for the first 3 years of primary school, which was fantastic. A lot of kids don't get that opportunity these days. So it meant that we didn't have to re-inform and re-educate teachers again every single year with what needed to happen and what didn't need to happen. So I wouldn't sit on the ground because I couldn't sit on the ground. So I would always sit on a chair. I would have to have like a sloping desk. So the desk in front my mother made out of wood and painted it brown, and that was my desk. It sat on top of the actual school desk that I had. I had a pillow that I sat on. Pencils and textures and stuff like that were always thicker, and I had special grips. I would have splints made for like my right hand, and I still have them to this day, that I would wear so that there wouldn't be as much pain from, you know, always constantly writing and everything. So more of a a support there.
So all those things would have emphasized to others that there was something different about you, which would have been difficult. I'd love to hear how you cope with some of that as well. And when we come back, we're going to hear more of Sarah's story. This is Life Bursts. So Sarah, going through school, there were lots of ways you practically had help to cope. How did you cope emotionally through those primary school years?
Honestly, you don't really think about it. You're like a kid and you're like, this is what life is like. And like I mentioned before, I just thought that everybody's life was like this. But kids just didn't express it in the same way that I did. When I sort of got to like year 7, so 11, 12 years old, I was a pastoral care worker at the school. So Jade, who I'm still in contact with today, and she was fantastic at the little different activities that she would do, and that that you could just go and talk to her about what was going on, even if I didn't really understand what was going on. And I must say, kids these days are definitely, sound like an old person, but no, they're definitely more switched on with their mental health and with their emotions and how they're feeling. And that all comes back to the people now that are in 20s, 30s that have always been sort of advocating for that type of change here, that have been through the schooling system with this new schooling system and seeing that there are flaws and that, we do need to have a bigger conversation about mental health of children and how they're feeling at school, and then what you can do to help them as well. So there's definitely much more awareness around it now. Learning from like my parents and everything, from what they have shared, it was the help of other parents who would sit and listen, or that they would engage with and talk with. And just being in a smaller community allows you to be able to build those relationships and friendships with people. When young families get together, anything can happen. You're all going through the same thing with parenting. And I don't have children yet, but that's what I've seen that happens. And that's what my parents have said, that was a real support, being in a small town with people around them to help them.
So looking back, what would you say to other children who might be going through something either completely different or similar, but that puts them in a unique spot, and where others are looking at them and bullying them? What would you say to them that you would have said to Sarah all those years ago?
Well, there's a few things that I like to say. I'll just pick a couple of them. Is that they're so much stronger than what they think they are. Even you, as people who are listening and watching this, you are so much stronger than what you think you are. No matter what the kids are going through, or even the adults and the parents or people that are looking after a child in this way. It may seem like it's hard now, but you'll look back on it and you'll be like, wow, I really learned something from that. I really grown from that. So keep pushing through it, just keep going. Also, if you're at school and you're being bullied by someone or a group of people, chances are they're bullying you because they don't understand what you're going through. They don't understand how to help you. But mostly from research and stuff, you found out that actually the people doing the bullying feel insecure about something that's going on inside of them or what's happening in their life. So pretty much just don't kind of give in to it. Don't feed them to keep bullying or keep doing anything. Stand your ground and go find some people who actually really care about you, which came out in your story as well, Matt. Getting alongside other people. There are lots of different groups at schools, whether you're at a small school or a bigger school. Go and find some young people who can understand you and share about it. And with social media and stuff these days, it's so much more easier to be yourself and to express how you feel. And I think that is fantastic. So that's what I'd say to those kids.
Great advice. So as you moved into your teenage years, did things change in the sense of what you could physically do and not do? And how did that affect the things that you could do that others were doing that you'd call hobbies? What did you find to get involved in?
Well, I was never like a netballer or a footballer or a soccer player, or I did try tennis. Like I did like playing tennis. I was pretty good at tennis. The one thing I really, really enjoyed was swimming. I loved swimming. I did swimming every single Tuesday in Hahndorf with a special teacher and really small lessons, and it was great. It was awesome. Water, warm water especially, is great when you are experiencing juvenile arthritis or arthritis in general. It is awesome. And so I really, really liked doing that. Also, my father was a part of the CFS at Ichanga. He was captain at the time when I was moving into high school. And so my family were a part of the OB support. So those who go out, who feed the firefighters, who water them, who make sure that they are okay. And so whenever there was a big bushfire happening or they were out for hours upon hours, the firefighters were, that is, we would get together with a whole bunch of other people from the community. We'd line up tables and make sandwiches, burgers, rolls, packets of, lollies or whatever, and send it out with the appliances, CFS appliances as they came in. So I really enjoyed doing those things. And of course I loved going to kids club and youth group and all of those different activities within the church. It was a way that I was able to make friends with people who were compassionate and caring and wanted to listen to what I was going through when I was ready to share what I was going through, that is. Because being so isolated and alone for such a long time, or feeling like you are because of this condition and because of the stigma that is still around because of this condition, it does get very lonely and isolating. And there was no, back in 90s and 2000s, there wasn't that much of a social media presence. I was too young to be on social media. So there was nothing like there is now for support online with other people. You can reach them more broader. But when I was 12, I had applied to go to Hayfield High School in the Adelaide Hills. I really wanted to go there because I did love drama. That's pretty much why I ended up turning into radio. Loved drama, really wanted to go there because of the drama program, not volleyball program. And then I injured myself treading water for the first time in my swimming lessons, and we just thought it was a normal injury that kind of happens, and then it pretty much manifested into osteoporosis and rheumatoid arthritis, went in and attacked the joint. So it, ultimately, to cut a super long story short, it's kind of just bone on bone now. I did have a spur and it was very hard for me to walk and run and do all those things. I don't have that problem anymore. That'll come out later on in the story. But at the time, it was terrible, horrible, the worst thing. I spent so much time in hospital. It's not funny. So many times when the doctors were like, right, we're going to keep you into hospital. You're going to have to stay here in this room because we don't want you to walk anywhere because we're trying to figure out what to do with you. We're trying to figure out what to do with your hip. We're trying to figure out why you are not responding to any medication. You're not responding to steroids. You're not responding to injections. What is going on? You need to stay here. But there is a funny story that does come out of all of this. So the first time when they told me that I needed to go into hospital and to be in hospital, stay in there for a week, and I wasn't allowed to go on long walks or anything like that. I had to stay in my bed while they tried to figure out what was going on. It was cherry tomato season.
Right.
And so we used to grow cherry tomatoes at our house in Ichanga. And so we just, my brother and I had gone out and picked a whole bunch of cherry tomatoes. And so my brother and I, the night before going to hospital, were just sitting there eating cherry tomatoes, right? Because, well, they're delicious and you can. Anyway, the next day, go into hospital, everything's fine. I get admitted. And then I just start vomiting, all the time. And it doesn't stop. It didn't stop. And they thought that I had gastro, even though I thought, I think I just eaten too many tomatoes. But that's okay. So then I got my own room.
Oh, perfect.
And it was fabulous. So for the rest of the week, I had my own room, and the doctors all had to dress up in full gear and everything, mask and what we would call PPE now that everyone's aware of, PPE coming on in and stuff. It was funny when you're 12 years old. That's and you're right. Stuck in a room. It was.
Well, there's a tip. There's a tip for anybody.
Don't say that.
We are listening to Sarah's story. This is Life Bursts. Now, Sarah, there's one hobby that you haven't shared that you got involved in at a very young age. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so because we realized, my family and I realized that there wasn't much awareness about this condition, my mother found the closest organization that she could to supporting children who were living with juvenile arthritis, saw that they weren't doing very much, and so we tried to change that. So for many years, we advocated for change here in South Australia for juvenile arthritis. We raised thousands upon thousands of dollars of funds for this change, and we felt that nothing actually ever happened. Nothing that we wanted to happen, nothing that we were trying to voice was happening. And so we didn't really hear that our voices were being listened to. But through that, we found that there was also a community that were going through the same thing that also felt that their voices weren't being heard. And so that pretty much led to the biggest hobby of them all, which I don't really see as a hobby anymore.
More than a hobby.
It's what I love doing. It's amazing. So yeah, when I finished school, I've just answered your question that you were I'll let you ask it, okay?
Well, that's what I was going to ask, what you want to do. What did you want to do when you finished school? Did you have any idea?
When I was in year 10, they asked us, so I eventually ended up at Heathfield High School, right? So I hobbled for a couple of years around this terrible hobble. It ended up on ABC, the 7:30 report and stuff. They did a whole report about juvenile arthritis. And so that was one of the parts of that change, I suppose, just to go back on your question that you just asked me. When I was 12, that's when my radio thing started, but we can bring that up later. I went on and talked about juvenile arthritis. So when in year 10, they ask you, and they still do these days at school, did they ask you, when you were in year 10, about what you wanted to do?
Yeah, it was certainly a time where you started thinking about it. They wanted to prompt you.
Yes. I wrote journalist because from a very young age, my grandma in Eunice Owen encouraged me to write things and draw things and put things in articles and stuff in the Etrunga Community Times every month. So I did do that. So I really liked that, and I really liked this thing called television and radio, and I thought it was fantastic here in Australia because you can share your opinion and it's okay and it's accepted or not accepted. It doesn't matter. It was fantastic. So I really wanted to be a journalist. I found my year 12 yearbook the other day, funnily enough, when I was going through some things, and it says that I wanted to go and study to be a journalist, but I also said that I wanted to be a full-time personal trainer, study to be a journalist, and continue to be an ambassador for juvenile arthritis.
Right.
Because I said that there was, being a little bit selfish here, I feel like I was in my year 12 statement, that I feel like I was the best fit for the position of living with the condition at the time.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what I thought my life was going to look like. And I did become a full-time personal trainer for a while there, where I was figuring out what it was supposed to be. I went and did, which was pretty extraordinary, by the way. I was on some pretty heavy medication called biologics, which go in and then start changing what's the cells and stuff that's inside of you. Is the best way to explain it, rather than a tablet like Panadol or Celebrex or those types of things where they go in and speak to your brain. This speaks more to the overall running of your body and how it works. And so I was on this pretty hard stuff. So I was pretty good. I was able to lift weights and exercise and do things I hadn't been able to do in such a long time. So I decided to study to be a personal trainer, which no one ever thought I'd ever do. I finished it the year after leaving year 12, so finishing school. So that took 2 years, and then started the business. I worked at a gym for a while and started to build up relationships and saw how easy it was. And this was before personal training was in and cool and everybody was doing it. Everyone's now doing it, and the market is so flooded with lots of different people. So
you're a pioneer.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to be and what I wanted to do, and I did do that. But I also started Kids Arthritis when I was 19. So it's Australia's first and leading organisation that's changing the way the world views arthritis. And lots of people thought that that was crazy. From the age of 15 onwards, pretty much I had this vision in my head that I was going to start an organisation. And pretty much anybody from any other type of organization would tell me that I couldn't do it, that I shouldn't do it, that it would be too hard. And I just want to say that I didn't start Kids Arthritis because those people told me that I couldn't do it. No, that's not my motivation at all. Some people, they tell them that they can't do something, so then they go out and do it to like get back at that person. No, that's not why I started it. I started it out of a genuine need that people all around Australia and in fact the world need a voice. These children and their families and carers need a voice, and they need someone to share with the world and support them so that they can feel supported enough to talk about it. That's what they needed. So I filled that gap, and I'm still filling that gap. And so many other young people have stepped up with me and are also filling that gap. And they are true warriors. They are incredible. They are amazing. They are so strong. And they're going through very similar things to what I went through. The medication may be stronger. It may be different now, but they're still going through the same issues. And so it is wonderful to have an organization that they can turn to, people that they can turn to, people that they trust is the big word there, and can, to be there for them.
Is there just one story, and you don't have to use their names, of the impact that your organization's had on them in a positive way?
There is an organization overseas that has started. It's not a family, but it's like the biggest story and the most amazing story and it's something I never, ever, ever thought would happen. There's an organization that has now started in a third world country that is there for children and their families and carers who are living with juvenile arthritis. It's called Arthritis Kids, which I'm okay with. But they saw how easy it was for me to set it up. It was easy, but it wasn't easy. Like you're starting something new for the first time. But they saw me doing it and how much support I was getting. So then they thought, let's do this, because a similar thing is happening here. We're not getting supported enough. Let's do this. And that is amazing to me. That is just the biggest type of, I'm not looking for encouragement or awards or anything like that, even though I have some. It's just amazing that people in another country have felt so supported by what we have done here in Australia with Kids Arthritis, that they have decided to start their own charity. It is absolutely amazing.
That's fantastic. And so you continue to run Kids Arthritis, and there are people, a number of programs offered. What are some of the ways you're currently connecting and encouraging people?
So it has become more acceptable now to be online for things. And so before everything happened in 2020, we were going interstate and meeting with families, meeting with doctors and all those types of people interstate, and just connecting them, because that's what people want. Like there's organizations that are looking for a cure. There's organizations that are doing all of that. But you need to really focus on what is the root cause. Like, what is the problem right now? It's that these families don't even feel supported enough to even talk about it with their friends or even with their family, that they're not even going to share it. So supporting them, bringing them together, connecting them with other people who are like them so they feel supported enough to then share it. So lots of online groups, in-person groups. We go to schools, speak to teachers, run tons of different programs. It's just amazing. But overall, it's to connect the families, the children and carers together so that they feel supported enough to then tell other people. I can't stress that enough out of everything that we do. And we do so much that we don't have enough time for to go into today. There is a lot. Kidsarthritis.org is where you can go to find out more about what I'm talking about now.
Fantastic. We are chatting to Sarah and hearing Sarah's story. This is Life Bursts. Well, Sarah, you've certainly packed a fair bit into a pretty unique childhood. After being a personal trainer and alongside setting up your charity, What other jobs did you find yourself throwing yourself into?
Yeah, this is sort of the part of my life that I haven't really shared very widely before. So it's awesome that I get to share it in this capacity. So when I'd finished my study as personal trainer, I was working at a gym, but I also knew that I really loved kids, right? I really loved kids. So I wanted to figure out whether I really liked volunteering at my church with kids or if I liked working with kids in a childcare center. So with that type of experience that I'd got from being 12 and I was like 18 by this time of volunteering at Ichunga, where you are, I was pretty desirable to work in a childcare center. So it made it really easy. And I picked up working at 3 different centers, just pretty much just figuring out and trying to discover if that's where I was supposed to be and if that's what I really liked doing. Turns out I didn't like doing that at all.
Good to know.
It wasn't for me. Childcare was not for me, but hats off to those people who are in childcare. You're very important to society. And so from there, I pretty much realized, okay, well, I'm not supposed to be in a childcare center. I do like volunteering at church with children. So I'm going to keep doing that. And then, obviously Kids Arthritis started when I was 19. At church, there was the minister that was there before you, Laurie Lingwood, his wife, Kathy Lingwood, pretty much just took me underneath her wing, and she taught me all of these incredible leadership skills that I have now. She helped form and shape me from that young teenager up until they left, and just being there at Kids Club, and started just washing the dishes afterwards, but then moving into taking on more of a role with running craft and being behind a table and learning how to talk to kids and be with kids and pretty much, as you say, come alongside them and be there with them and talk about their day and what's been going on in their life, to then stepping up and being on the little committee that organized a little group that organized these events to happen. And so then took a bigger role, and then eventually ended up gaining paid work to do these types of things. So connecting in the school and being alongside her pastoral care worker that was there. So pastoral care worker was a huge influence in my life being in primary school. So it was great to work alongside her and to be in the school with the kids. And because my brother's 3 years younger than me, he wasn't still in primary school, but because it was such a small town, there were kids there that I knew anyway, like their siblings and stuff, from people that I went to school with. And it was awesome to be in that position and to now lead that kids club and to lead those things. And I was thrown into leading a youth group, which was crazy and different, but also fun, leading on Sunday mornings and getting up in front of a church rather than just singing up in front of the church, but actually sharing messages and speaking with people and them going on this journey with me, which many people at Ichunga have done my whole life. They've seen me from a little tiny kid, little baby, to where I am now, and I'm still there. I'm still connected with them. And so they have come along for that journey as well. And so that was really exciting. I was then picked up to go and work in a couple of other churches as well, doing children's ministry. And at the same time, I was running Kids Arthritis, but it never sort of overlapped or anything. I never let my own personal views of faith and God and Jesus and everything interfere within the charity. That is a part of who I am, but it's not a part of what Kids Arthritis is. Just want to make that super clear. So that was great. It really affirmed to me that I am great at connecting with young people, especially teenagers, and I'm still in contact with a lot of those teenagers from that time of my life, and they still want to hang out with myself and my husband now, and we still do that and still hang out with some of the kids, and just continuing to be there and to be a positive influence in their life. Just like, so much of what your story last week said, about my story, is that there are lots of young people that are leaving the church, and there are lots of young people that are thinking that God doesn't love them, God doesn't care about them, that they're sick or they're feeling this way or this is happening because God doesn't love them. But in fact, it's actually the opposite. God loves them and wants to have a relationship with them and wants to get to know them more. And he's trying to talk to them, but you just need to be listening. And I had a conversation with one of my friends that I have known pretty much since birth, because our fathers are best friends. And he's just like, well, I don't think God's trying to talk to me, Sarah. And my friend, myself and my other friend who I've known since high school, we both at the same time said, you're not listening. And it's so true. God is trying to talk to you, but are you listening? Are you really listening to what he has to say? And he'll speak in different ways to different people. And I think that is what is awesome and amazing about God, is that he is there no matter what happens. And, there are kids through Kids Arthritis that when I share with them that I went to church or whatever, they'll then be like, oh, I go to church too. Or, I talk to God, or I go to a Christian school, or I read the Bible. Like, they'll start talking about it. And I remember when I did, share one time with one of the little girls, she said, oh yeah, I go to a Christian school. Do you think that God could help me with my arthritis too? And I said, yeah, I think God can help you with your arthritis too if you want him to. It's pretty awesome. So yeah, there was that part of my life that was happening at the same time. And I had a pretty awesome mentor who was also there leading and guiding and shaping and taught me so much, which was excellent. And I really encourage young people to have someone that's a little bit older than them that is also passionate in the same areas, that can help guide and grow them in the same way and in the way that you do want to be, and to have that good relationship with people that you can trust, which is excellent.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Now, you mentioned your husband.
Yes.
Just tell us briefly, how you met and just the makeup of your household now.
I think I know where this is going.
Yeah.
So I met my husband in the middle, really. So he's from the northeast, so from Modbury, and obviously I'm from Echunga, and we met in the city, and it just went from there. I would like to say our families are sort of complete opposites from one another, but what is really true is that both of our families love us so dearly and love each other so dearly, and it's amazing to just be so welcomed into their family. So when we got married, everyone was there, the whole community came out, and everybody was so excited. So married in 2019 for my father passed in October of 2019. So it was pretty awesome to have him there with us. And now life is living in the northeast, which I'm getting used to slowly. Smaller block of land, it's about 700 square meters, so not too much smaller than an acre and a bit. Have amazing neighbors, so that makes it better, that little country feel. I do have a rabbit, Marshmallow, which I think is where you were leading with this.
I think so.
Yes.
Cue the pictures.
Yeah, that's right. Cue the pictures of Marshmallow the rabbit. If you are listening to this as a podcast and you can't see pictures, Marshmallow is a little white, fluffy, lopped-eared rabbit with blue eyes. He wears a collar that is blue with a little bow tie on it. And he was in our wedding. He drove a Mercedes car, which we got from Mercedes. It was given to us by Mercedes, down the aisle and delivered the rings to you, the minister.
Yeah.
And it was pretty adorable. It was pretty awesome. I have a turtle called Terrence, which I said to my dad, I said, just before he died, I said, I'm going to, because he loved turtles and my husband loves turtles. I was like, I'm going to get my husband a turtle one day. And so, we were given a turtle. His name is Terrence. And we have 3 chickens. We all have names, all different, fluffy and white. That's not their names. But one's fluffy, one's white, and one's big and brown. And we have a bunch of goldfish. So life is smaller than living in Echunga, but it's also a different sort of exciting, and I love it.
Fantastic. Well, we're listening to Sarah's story. This is Life Bursts. Now, Sarah, you've shared a fair bit of your story and the challenges and what you've been doing. But in the last little while, you've had another unique experience that I'd love to hear a little bit of your perspective on it. Tell us what happened for you a couple of years ago.
Yeah, so a couple of, probably about a couple of years ago, a little bit further. Many people know I went blind, like fully blind for the first time. And so, as I do as a person who loves Jesus, I went up to the front of the church and shared with everyone at the church what was happening. And obviously people were really shocked and weren't really sure what to do. So we prayed and everything. And then at the end of the service, when I was walking out, a lady came up to me who I've known forever, and she said, "Sarah, I think something else might be going on here." I didn't really understand what that meant. And so then we went over and we have a cuppa afterwards and stuff like that. And another lady who I've known forever and trust and respect came up to me and said the same thing. She said, "Sarah, I think that there might be something deeper, something else going on in your life." And so once again, took that with what does even that mean? Anyway, people sort of started coming around me in a sort of a deeper sense because I was obviously blind, right? And I couldn't see anything, and it was hard. And my sight eventually came back after 4 days, and then it would just disappear randomly whenever it wanted to, my whole sight and everything. And that happened a few times, a few more than what I would like, which is none, but it happened a few more than I would like. And then pretty much met some people through the church, and they really prayed for me, but they prayed for me in a different way, which I love and which I've learnt so much from. And through that time on my 25th birthday, I woke up and I felt no more pain anymore.
Right. And this is not something that happens every day for you.
No, I literally lived my whole life in pain every single day. Every single day, constant pain there. I don't even know how I lived now, but I woke up and there was no pain, and I could move with no pain. I could move with no stiffness. It was amazing. Anyway, I was curious, so I went and had a blood test, right? And the blood test came back that I did not have arthritis anymore.
Wow.
The doctors are still stunned, and they still don't know, because currently there is, now I say, no medical cure. Before that, I used to say that there was no cure for juvenile arthritis. But there clearly is a cure, and you could tell that through my story that we've just heard. And so now I say that there is no medical cure, because there is no medical cure. But there is a cure for juvenile arthritis. It's like there's cures for lots of other different things in this world as well. So that happened, but the blindness still continued to stick around. So it still didn't have sight in my right eye, and hadn't since I was a teenager. And there's a whole big story about that people can find out about online. And so then we just kind of kept doing this thing called praying to God and seeking his wisdom and advice and what he wanted to do. And may sound crazy to some people because they don't understand, and hey, that's fine. This is what happened, and there's people around me that can vouch for what happened as well. And like we say here on Life Burst, it's your story. You can't argue with someone's story because it's what happened to them. And that is the case right now. People are like, "Oh, did you diet change?" No. Did you change your exercise? No. I'm just like, I don't think you understand. I had pain for my whole life, and then in one day, it's not there, and it has not come back. That pain that I used to feel, I'm 27 now, it has never, ever come back again in the same way. If you watch videos back from the beginning of Kids Arthritis, I'll share with people that I'm in pain every single day, and it's a different type of pain. It's not like banging your knee on a table. I've sat in this exact chair, in this exact room, saying those things. It's a different type of pain. So when that pain had gone, I knew something was different, and I went to my arthritis doctor, and I sat crossing my legs because I'd never been able to do that. And I was standing up and sitting down in different ways, and I've grown in height since all of this has happened. Yet my vision has continued to get worse, but I know, and other people know, and you know, Matt, that it is going to come back. And doctors and medical professionals really wrestle with that. You know, I've been referred to lots of different doctors because I stand this ground that my sight will come back. And I tell people that my sight will come back. And I have told my doctors to back off from offering medication and offering all of this because I know that it's going to come back. And as I shared, that was a very informed choice that I made, not just on the grounds of what had happened, but on the grounds of speaking with other people and other things in life and around that, to sort of take that stand to say, just let me do it for a bit. I'm 26, 27. Just let me work it out for a while and I'll come back to you if I need your help. So that's where I am now.
Yeah. So just to recap, you lived with symptoms of juvenile arthritis for
25
all
years
of your life. And then after people prayed with you, you woke up one morning and you haven't had those symptoms anymore. And the blood tests and the doctors are baffled. Everything is clear. It's changed. How do you wrestle with then that when you've prayed, you believe God can work a miracle, and he did, but yet with your eyesight, that miracle hasn't happened? How do you not get angry at God, or how are you dealing with that?
Well, I believe that pretty much from just like everything and from the Bible and other people who are older than me, who are wiser than me with experience, that God has a plan. This earth just doesn't happen. The sun just doesn't shine. It just doesn't rain at a certain time. Like, this stuff just doesn't happen. Okay, like, I can try and control my life as much as I can, but it just doesn't work. At a point in time, it'll just come back around. It just, for me, of course, I've asked why. I'm a human being. Of course, I'm going to ask why. Why is this happening? Why did my dad die? Why can't I see? Why? But it's not the main thing that I focus on. But God likes it when we ask why, but only in a good way, like in a nice tone that we ask him why, because it means that we're curious and we want to know why. But I trust him that the plan that he has in store for me and you and people listening is something much bigger and much greater than what we could ever understand. And the moment, because like my whole life, I've always believed in God. Like, there's been no buts or ifs. I knew that something was there, and that's how I was raised. But my parents were also very much like, you sort of, like, you figure it out yourself. We want to give you space to do that. And so I've come to that conclusion that, this is what I want to do, because so many things just keep happening. So many things happen that you can't explain, that just seem to happen, that are awesome and amazing. And if you need something, it just happened. Like, I just trust. That's why I'm not worried. That's why I'm not concerned. That's why I am legally blind right now. And I honestly, it doesn't faze me one bit. Like, the doctors are all, wah! And I'm like, dude, it's fine. Like, just chill. Like, it's going to come back. Right now I'm living like this, and it's okay. I'm at peace with it, and I'm totally fine with it. And that's strange, and it takes a long time for a person to get to that sort of point if you haven't had all of this lead up, and if you haven't had people around you that nurture you and love you and care for you and listen to you and are there for you. That is the biggest influence. I have deliberately surrounded myself with people who care about me, people who want the best for me. And I learned that in high school, and I learned that as a young adult. You are who you hang out with. You need to surround yourself with those people. And hey, if it turns out that those people also believe in this Jesus, then hey, that's awesome. But I also surround myself with people who don't, and people who are very, very tested by what has happened in my life, because this doesn't happen every single day. And I can give you all the evidence that I have to say that what has happened is true, and what has happened is real, and it's amazing. So I stand firm, and I don't know, it's just too hard not to. Like, I just don't understand how people don't.
Yeah. That's an incredible story. So Sarah, thank you for sharing with that.
Yeah, wow.
And I think you shared your advice all there in that as well. So it has been great to share with you. This is Life Bursts. We're continuing to share stories of people that we know, your stories, the real stories that are worth sharing with the world. I'm Matt.
And I'm Sarah.
Life Bursts is hosted by Matthew Carratt and Sarah Freeman, with production by Reese Jarrett and Kay Hoshraw Ozadigan, with additional assistance by Brett Freeman. For more episodes of Life Bursts, go to rawcut.com.au. This is a RawCut production.